Extension. We're going to talk about something we all need, and that is sleep. We're going to look at a program today that Purdue Extension puts on called Sleep on It, Why Sleep Matters. And I would like you to recognize that my name is Harriet Armstrong. I'm right here at Bartholomew County's Purdue Extension office. And as you see on the screen, there's information regarding how to connect with me. I am the Health and Human Sciences educator, so anything that deals with health, family, money, or food are areas of which I often address programs or answer questions. But along with me tonight, we also have Dr. Chada, who's with the Sleep Center here in Columbus, at the Columbus Regional Health. And Dr. Chada, would you like to please introduce yourself and tell a little bit more about what you are doing there at the center?
Hello, Ms. Armstrong. My name is Dr. Chana. I'm one of the sleep physicians at Columbus Regional Hospital. First of all, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak and know about the community, and I would like to thank you for arranging this. Today we're going to talk a little bit about sleep, the influence of pandemic on sleep, common sleep disorders, and I'll be ready to answer any questions after that.
So as we talk today, we are hoping that you would feel free to ask questions in the chat box so that we can direct those and answer any questions that you might have, those of you that are online. And so please don't hesitate. I think, can easily pause and answer questions as we go. I did want to show, though, a quick slide and just recognize that Purdue Extension is a equal opportunity engagement part of the United States Department of Agriculture, and so we try to make sure we reach out to all within our county and within our state to provide programs that meet the needs there. So tonight's our objectives will be: what are the benefits of sleep? What are some of the risks that might be occurred if one has insufficient sleep? What are some of the barriers to quality sleep? And recognizing some tips that can help to improve your sleep. I know that many times when someone asks, what should I do to feel better? They are often told, well, you need to eat well, you need to get more exercise, and you need to get quality sleep. So sleep health is a part of our physical health, which is one dimension of wellness. The purpose of our time together is to learn more about its importance. I will say, though, that this is going to focus on adults. This is a workshop that's not designed to diagnose or treat specific medical conditions. It includes health education meant to inform, and it's not intended to replace the individualized treatment recommendations from healthcare professionals. So hopefully if you have in-depth questions, it'll at least encourage you to go ahead and seek further advice from a professional. I am curious to know how many people you think in the state of Indiana are not getting at least 7 hours of sleep a night. Any guesses from those online? If you could, just place it in the chat. That would be a welcome thing. Well, I want to show you a chart just to kind of give you a better understanding of the percentage of adults in Indiana that are getting less than 7 hours of sleep. Despite knowing we should sleep more and sleep better, many people are not getting that kind of quality sleep. As per the Center of Disease Control, compared to the national average of about 33% getting the less than recommended amount of sleep, the rates in Indiana are even higher, unfortunately. We're topping out 41.1%. Now, if you took a look at our little chart up here for the Bartholomew County area, we're somewhere between 29.3 to 34.6%. And so, yes, we may be doing better, but honestly, it is a bit alarming to think about a third of the people not getting enough sleep. That is less than 7 hours. So when we think, why does sleep matter? Two professors at Purdue University said it well in an article dated in 2019. It was stated there is nothing that doesn't affect sleep and nothing that sleep doesn't affect. We're going to dive in a little deeper into this idea tonight. We have to take it for granted that what sleep really means. We go to sleep, but a lot of things are happening as we sleep. What most of us have thought of as a simple process is actually rather complicated. And even the dictionary definition is complicated. You can see that definition up here. I will ask you to focus, there's some words highlighted. During the time of sleep, dreaming can occur. There are cycles of non-REM sleep and of REM sleep. And it is essential for the restoration and recovery of our total bodies. So today we're going to break it down by explaining some of the types and the stages of sleep that we go through. The CDC tells us that while research from the past 20 years has identified distinct sleep stages that cycle throughout the night in predictable patterns, and that our quality of sleep is more than total hours, it's related to the time spent in these types and stages of sleep. Sleep is divided into two basic types: rapid eye movement, or what we might call REM, and non-REM sleep. The non-REM has actually 3 stages, and all sleep stages repeat throughout the period of a time a person sleeps. A REM sleep, which is where dreaming occurs, arms and legs are temporarily paralyzed, the eyes move rapidly back and forth, breathing becomes rapid, shallow, and irregular, and the heart rate and blood pressure increase. During non-REM, stage 1 sleep is usually light and is easily awakened. In stage 2, half of the person's sleep time occurs in this stage. There are slower brain waves at this time. Stage 3 then is extremely slow delta brain waves. It's difficult to be awakened. Children who wet the bed or sleepwalk are usually in this stage. Stage 3 is the restorative stage of sleep, necessary for feeling well rested and energetic during the day. Now, REM plus stage 3, which is the deep sleep, that provides restoration. You can't control deep or REM sleep, but you can adopt habits during the day that will help put you in the sweet spot of those 2 stages. And we'll explain that a bit later. Dr. Chad, is there any other things you want to draw to our attention regarding these 2 types of sleep?
Ms. Armstrong, I think you covered a very good point. When we first go to sleep, the first stage is about stage 1. It lasts about 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes goes up to 30 minutes, and then we slip into stage 2. Stage 2 is the longest phase of our sleep. Once you go into stage 2, you slowly slip into stage 3 and then REM. Now, the first REM, you let it about 90 minutes into sleep, 45 to 90 minutes. And the first REM is a little bit shorter. As the night progresses, the cycle keeps repeating. Once you go into REM, you come back to stage 2, stage 3, and again back REM. As we go into later parts of the night, REMs become longer and longer. And you're absolutely right. REM is the most important phase of sleep. That's the most restorative part of sleep, along with stage N3. So these 2 stages, everybody should attain at least 15 to 30% of their sleep should be this. If you have less than that, then you have a non-restorative feeling. You wake up and refreshing, and that helps a lot to have a better sleep.
So as we talk tomorrow, tonight, and you're online, please feel free to ask questions, and we will hopefully be able to address some of those. I'd like us to go ahead and take a look now at how much sleep you need. And so with that, there's a chart here, and it really changes as you age. As you see on this chart, there's a review of how much sleep is recommended based on age. babies and young children need the most, and by adulthood, we're basically looking at 7 to 9 hours. The red box is where we as adults would fall, and although the amount of sleep you get each day is important, good quality sleep is also essential. So think back to those stages and cycles we just mentioned. Next, we'll focus on how to get that quality of sleep so that you feel rested and are functioning to your full potential. So, there is an informative booklet that I want to draw your attention to. It's from the U.S. Department of HHS National Institute of Health. It's called Your Guide to Healthy Sleep. And that gives a nice summary of studies that are showing the benefits of quality sleep. Sleep forms new learning and memory pathways in the brain and allows them to function. It allows a person to learn tasks and remember what was learned. It can increase creative problem-solving ability. Sleep gives you a heart and vascular system that is a much-needed rest, which promotes heart health. During sleep, hormones are released that support growth and development, fertility, insulin, and sugar levels. Sleep strengthens your immune system and allows your body to fight infections. And as we head into cold and flu season, and I know many of us are concerned about other germs that we encounter, that's pretty important. I would recommend that we make sure we identify what are some of these good benefits. Are you aware, anybody else online, of any other benefits of having a good night's sleep? Well, I don't know about you, but I can know that there's some things that farm as risk when you have poor sleep. I am not known to be the most energetic or a chirpy person if I've not had a good night's sleep. So bad mood, irritability, and being unhappy can sometimes be an outcome. We want to look at some of these reverse angle consequences. Let's consider some of the risks. When body doesn't get enough quality sleep, and if you're not well rested, you can experience that irritability, bad mood, tiredness, confusion, lack of concentration. More severe consequences can be risk-taking behaviors, faulty decision-making, loss of perception of your functioning level, impaired driving, slower reaction time, increased incidence of accidents. And long-term health effects can include increased risk for heart disease, stroke, diabetes, obesity, depression, and low immune system. The field of sleep study continues to progress, and we are starting to hear more about studies on sleep and dementia or cognitive impairment. So remember the map of the state? How are you in terms of which subgroup are you? Are you getting enough quality sleep? This slide actually lists some sample questions you can ask yourself and discuss with your healthcare provider to further explore your situation and your needs. So, besides the questions that you see up there, you might also ask, how refreshed do you feel when you wake up? How tired do you feel during the day? How often do you have trouble sleeping? And how long have you had that problem? How long does it take you to fall asleep? How often do you wake up at night? And how long does it take you to fall back to sleep? How often do you doze off or have trouble staying awake during routine tasks, and especially during driving? There are what we call sleep questionnaires out there that you can rate with more detail the frequency of your sleep complaints and sleep symptoms that you're experiencing. I have an actual form called a PSSQ that I would make available to anyone that's interested. Please put in the chat box your email address, for I also have not only this handout but several others This particular sleep analysis gives you an opportunity to see what you might be having as a problem. It might also be a good way to identify if you should be looking at talking to a professional about your sleep-related issues. Dr. Chadha, do you have any other comments with regard to assessing our quality of sleep?
Ms. Armstrong, I think what you covered as the basic problems we're going to have when somebody does not get good sleep. A constant feeling of drag, a sensation of irritability, loss of concentration, feeling of sleepiness during the daytime. When you wake up, sometimes you can have headaches, sometimes you can have dry mouth. Driving becomes very difficult. You have frequent dozing off spells, sometimes stopping at a light, sometimes that can also make you sleepy, and people do tend to fall asleep if they do not get good night's sleep. There are several chronic long-term diseases that's beyond the scope of this talk, but I will just throw some light. Diabetes, obesity, hypertension, heart diseases, stroke have all been linked to insufficient sleep or disturbed sleep. The pathophysiology behind this is a little bit complicated, but it all comes down to raise in inflammatory markers because of lack of sleep and loss of oxygen during the sleep due to other issues like sleep apnea.
And I think, thank you, we're going to take a look at, you mentioned some more in-depth problems that can occur. I have here on the slide some content. We're tonight really focusing on general tips for improvement of sleep quality. However, there are some more serious instances in which you might need to consult your doctor. And consulting your healthcare provider with some of these questions with regard, do I really have a sleep disorder? And some of the sleep disorders that might be occurring could be insomnia, sleep-related to breathing disorders, hypersomnia, circadian rhythm disorders, parasomnias, sleep-related movement disorders. Doctor, you may wish to just elaborate a little bit more on these. Not that we're going to go into great detail, but these are some things definitely that need a healthcare provider's assistance with.
Sure, Ms. Armstrong. I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'll keep it very brief. I'm going to go about 6 common issues that we see in our sleep clinic. The first problem is insomnia. Insomnia is basically lack of sleep, unable to fall asleep. There are several types of insomnia. One is sleep initiation problem, that is you cannot fall asleep. Then you have sleep maintenance problem, that is you cannot maintain sleep. And then there's early termination, where you wake up and cannot go back to sleep. That's you need to meet a guidelines set up to meet the chronic insomnia definitions. So basically, you should have these symptoms for 3 times in a week, up to 3 months to categorize and diagnose you with chronic insomnia. Moving on, the next common issue, very common issue, is sleep-related breathing disorder. In common words, it's called obstructive sleep apnea or OSA. Obstructive sleep apnea is a condition where your airway loses patency overnight and the air cannot enter your lungs. Your airway is more like think about it like a tube. When the walls of the tube are not stiff enough, like when you sleep, all your muscles are going to relax. When these walls relax, and you try to suck in air, just like imagine like sucking in through a straw. The walls of the straw collapse, right? The same thing is going to happen. The airway collapses and the air cannot enter it. When that happens several times a night, you will have low oxygen levels in your body. Your oxygen dips, and studies have shown that it has close relationship with frequent heart attacks, strokes, atrial fibrillation, diabetes, and obesity too. So it is very important to get diagnosed and treated for this condition. The next condition I'm going to talk about is hypersomnia. Hyper basically means too much. Too much of sleep is hypersomnia. There are several conditions that can cause hypersomnia. One of the most common conditions in today's world, in our urban fast-moving life, is behaviorally induced insufficient sleep syndrome. That is, we are so busy in our day-to-day life that we go to bed late, we wake up early, we try to do so much in a day that we don't allocate enough time to sleep during the night. So that obviously causes some sleep debt. Sleep debt is a condition where you do not fulfill your quota. So you are sleepy during daytime. This is the first condition I always talk to my patient and make sure they have good night's sleep before diagnosing somebody with hypersomnia. There are pathological conditions which can make you sleepy. One of the common conditions is narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is a condition where you have sleep attacks. You fall asleep without any precondition, like you don't feel drowsy, you're doing something, you're fine, you go fall asleep. You lose tone in part of your body, part of your muscle, part of your face becomes weak, part of your hand becomes weak. When somebody makes you laugh, when you have emotional outbursts, you lose tone in your body. Then there are other features like sleep paralysis, where you feel like you're trapped in your own body. You cannot move. You can hear things, you can move your eyeballs, but that's about it. These episodes last about 5 seconds to 15 seconds, but they can be very suffocating and frustrating. When you experience it, you'll have a traumatic experience. And then you have hallucinations, where you see things, hear things that others do not. So these are all the features of narcolepsy. Commonly seen first starts in teenagers and then unfortunately sometimes goes undiagnosed and goes up to teenagers and adults. Unfortunately, these patients are sometimes labeled as lazy or unable to carry out their work. They fall asleep at school and do not function. If you have any of this, please seek medical attention. It needs treatment. There is very good treatment available and they function well after the treatment. The next category I'm going to talk about is circadian rhythm sleep-wake disorders. So just like you have a clock in your house, there's a clock inside your brain. It is controlled by a nucleus called a suprachiasmatic nucleus. So this clock tells you when to sleep and when to stay awake. So during the daytime, your clock stays, okay, you're going to stay awake, you're going to do things, and as the sun sets, your clock sets time to sleep. But for some reason, in some people, this clock shifts. So there are some people who sleep very late in the night and wake up very late in the daytime. And there are some people who sleep very early in the night and wake up very early in the day. These are shift disorders, circadian rhythm shift disorders. If they sleep very late, it's called as delayed sleep-wake cycle. If they sleep very early, it's called as advanced sleep-wake cycle. Delayed is usually seen in teenagers, adolescents, young adolescents. Advanced is seen in elderly population, geriatric population. There are treatment available, and we can help you with that too. The next category I'm going to talk about is parasomnias. Parasomnias is basically doing abnormal things in your sleep, like sleepwalking, sleep talking, teeth grinding, sleep eating, REM behavior disorder, which is seen in a slightly elderly group where they enact dreams. They move, they hit things, they get injured, they talk. Very important to get early diagnosis because this has a future consequence. These patients with REM behavior disorder develop Parkinson's disease in future. So it's very important to identify them and start treatment. The last category I'm going to talk about is sleep-related movement disorders. Now, there are conditions like restless leg syndrome, where you move your legs. You have an urge to move your legs as the day ends. When you're sitting idle, the urge gets worse. When you move around or when you massage yourself, the urge decreases. But it keeps on happening. It gets so bad that it interferes with your sleep. Very common in young women, young white women, common usually due to iron deficiency. If iron replacement does not help, then we'll start treatment. So, broadly speaking, and just touching things from the top without going into detail, this is mainly what we do and what we treat our patients with sleep conditions.
Thank you very much. I know that we also need to talk with our physician about some sleep tools. So there may be things that you have been exposed to as a sleep tool. I would just ask that here are some that are listed a tracking device, a sleep diary, a sleeping aid, or supplement. So if any of these are things that you are thinking about using, you might also want to consult with your physician. There are several over-the-counter sleep aids, but we also want to make sure that we're not taking anything that would interfere with other medication or problems that we might have. Doctor, can you think of any other sleep tools that we may be need to be aware of?
So as Armstrong, in today's technology, we have several sleep tools. Like we do not recommend anything at this point. Like if a patient wants it, they are more than welcome to use it. But in my population, sometimes you get so obsessed or so fixed on the tool that sometimes it itself can be part of stress. And if you're unable to go to sleep, then you keep looking at your watch, and that makes things worse. But not everybody. There are some people who like these devices. They monitor their sleep very well. They know how deep they're sleeping, and in those people, it's a wonderful tool. It helps a lot. And there are simple things like keeping a tab on your sleep, create a sleep log. Write down when you're going to sleep, when you're waking up, if you're taking coffee, what time you're taking, if you're taking other medications, what time you're taking those medications. It kind of gives us a idea of how your sleep cycle is, and if it needs to be changed, if it needs to be altered, we'll be in a better position to guide you based on your log.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to look at some general tips to increase your sleep quality. You might even call these the 5 easy tips to get more Z's. One of those, as we look now, most of the things you may be wondering about, how do I increase the amount and the quality of sleep I get? So these are the 5 tips. Everyday routine, electronics, environment, eating healthy, and exercise. Those are the ones we'll be focusing on. Consider how these might apply to you individually, but we also encourage you to think about your family sleep. How well are the members in your family sleeping? Successful sleep in any household requires a balance across all of its members. Sleep builds on home context, norms, and other members' needs. So the points listed here are related to your circadian rhythm. I know the doctor spoke of that earlier, and this also was referred to as your 24-hour body clock. Your brain receives signals based on your environment and activates certain hormones, alters your body temperature, and regulates your metabolism to keep you alert and to draw you to sleep. So tip 1, establish a daily routine. Your routine should start at the beginning of the day by getting some natural sunlight, because your circadian rhythm is influenced by light. Go to bed and wake up at the same time each day. Strive to be consistent, even on weekends and holidays. Make a set schedule. Having a set schedule, rather, helps to promote better sleep at night and keeps a consistent routine. This can make it have there's a little different than the schedule of your sleep hours. This is what to do when you are doing what you're getting yourself ready to do before you go to bed. A consistent routine, a schedule that you may be on. It will send signals to your body and to your brain that it's time to sleep. Examples of a routine could be changing into pajamas, wash your face and brush your teeth, take a warm bath or a shower, play soft music or do some light reading, do some light stretching or relaxation exercise. Whatever your routine, plan on it to be about 30 to 60 minutes for winding down. One quick reference to napping. If you're inclined to take a nap, it is advised that you limit it to 20 minutes and to avoid late afternoon or early evening naps, for they tend to disrupt your sleep cycles. I'm curious to know from any of you that are online if there's any favorite bedtime routine that you might have. Well, I know for myself that I'm always wanting to kind of just read a little bit from a book, gives myself a chance to make my brain disengage from the earlier part of the day, and that seems to make sleep a lot easier. I'm sure each of you have other routines that you might do. So we have all heard about the importance of also reducing stress and using self-care to relaxation practices. And doing this as part of your nighttime routine is ideal. Winding down your body and your mind will transition you to a more relaxed state, which will aid your body and mind in falling asleep. Try activities such as deep breathing or guided imagery, meditation, stretching, yoga, progressive muscle relaxation. These are just to name a few. And I know from, again, if any of you would share your email address, I have some handouts to share with you on progressive muscle relaxation to make that as something, if you've not tried it, is something you then may wish to do. And then,
we have a comment.
yes.
I love relaxation meditations with music, a little aromatherapy.
Awesome. Yes, that could easily make the end of the day be something that you look forward to. One thing that we do wish to make sure we mention as we're talking about preparation for sleep, and that's the issue of electronics. Trying to minimize electronics before bed. Why should we want to do this? They seem to be such a large part of our life that it may be hard sometimes to separate ourselves from them. But electronic devices actually cause our mental stimulation to occur. It produces noise that can wake you up and generates blue light, all of which can affect your circadian rhythm. And you need to keep a device, if you need to keep a device in your bedroom, switch it to bedtime mode and use a blue light filter. Keep it out of your arm's reach and avoid using it for an hour or more before sleeping. And avoid looking at it in the middle of the night if you wake up. Now, there is a question that sometimes comes up when we're talking about sleeping. I mentioned I like to read a book a little bit before I go to sleep. What about using e-reader books at night? Does that disrupt your sleep? Well, people have individual differences in experiences. Some e-readers have settings that are adjustable for filtering blue light and minimizing the screen effects. Dr. Chada, do you have any other comments about electronics before sleep?
Yes, Ms. Armstrong, I think you brought up a very, very important topic. Electronics, as you rightly said, can interfere with your sleep a lot. So our body is designed to produce melatonin whenever there's darkness. So when we see a bright object, especially blue-green wavelength, it's going to hit on your suprachiasmatic nucleus from the retina, and that suppresses melatonin. And when melatonin is not suppressed, your sleep is going to be disturbed. So we encourage all our patients to follow some basic sleep hygiene techniques. You have elaborated them very beautifully, and those things will definitely help you. The second reason why I'm a little bit against using electronics close to bedtime is sometimes we tend to watch TV, and on TV we watch stuff, violence, sometimes news itself sometimes in today's world it becomes so polarized that you get a lot of stress out of it. And with that stress, when you go to bed, it's going to affect your sleep. So if you're reading a book, you're more than welcome, that's very good. E-readers, yes, if you can put the blue light filter on, that's great. If you cannot, try to dim it and read it. If it's part of your sleep routine, then by all means, don't break the routine, continue it. But try to limit the white light, bright light, it's going to help you sleep better.
Thank you. And it's not just the use of electronics. Our bedrooms are really a total environment to take into consideration. Moving on with those bedroom environment tips, according to the National Sleep Foundation, a bedroom temperature of 60 to 67 degrees is ideal. Sleeping surfaces are also important for comfort and pain-free sleep. So choose your mattress, pillow, and bedding to your individual preferences. Limit the activities you do in bed. This can strengthen the link of your mind between sleep and being in bed. Strive only to use your bed for sleep, with sex being the one exception. If you read something light, not work materials, not schoolwork. Minimize the noises. Make sure you close the doors. And if noises are bothersome, invest in a white noise machine or even a fan to drown out noise, and fans to keep the room cooler. Calming scents, as our listener had suggested earlier, can be helpful. Some might include lavender or chamomile. Those things induce a calmer state of mind. They help to cultivate a positive space for sleep. So minimizing the lights, even lights from the alarm clock, can hamper sleep. So if you can't, turn them to face away and only use a night light. Another E that we mentioned earlier on was that of eating healthy. And both diet and sleep are complex, which means there's no single food or food group or magic wand we can wave that is guaranteed to help us sleep. However, the timing of intake and the type of foods and beverages consumed can influence sleep quality. To promote a better night's sleep, limit beverages to 1 hour before bedtime to prevent that middle of the night bathroom trip. And avoid also big, heavy, fatty, or spicy meals that would maybe be eaten try to keep them at least 2 hours before the bedtime. And if you're hungry and need a small snack, it's recommended to eat a snack with tryptophan. Now, tryptophan is an essential amino acid the body uses to produce certain proteins. It supplies the body with what is needed to make neurochemicals such as serotonin, dopamine, and melatonin. Those examples of foods that have tryptophan are poultry, such as chicken and turkey, seafood, such as tuna and salmon, dairy, nuts, and seeds, and even oats. These foods are all considered nutrient dense with many vitamins, minerals, and omega-3 fatty acids, which are involved in the body's regulation of serotonin and melatonin. Doctor, do you have any other tips with regard to food that you might want to share?
Ms. Armstrong, I think you covered some of the very important points. One of the things you rightly pointed out is try to avoid food eating very close to bedtime. Now, in your sleep, there are some changes that's going to happen. One, as we talked about during different stages of sleep, few things are going to happen. Your acid secretion will go up. Your tone of the lower esophagus, thus the esophageal sphincter tone, decreases. So these changes, in some people, when you eat close to bedtime, the acid is going to go reflex and you have acid burn. So if you eat food 2 to 3 hours before, your acid production is not much, so you're not going to have that. And the other thing, I think you're going to cover in future in one of your slides, alcohol. Alcohol is something we kind of ask patients to avoid drinking close to bedtime. If you can cut it down, great, but once in a while is okay. But try not to get too close to bedtime. Alcohol will suppress your REM sleep. Alcohol is a REM suppressant, so although you feel very sleepy, although it kind of makes you drowsy, you're never going to hit REM, so you wake up very unrefreshed. Okay. So tryptophan, great. Milk is a great product. We encourage to drink milk. If you're lactose intolerant, try not to do that, but other people can do that.
Thank you. And I think as we talk about other things before bedtime, we want to not omit caffeine and nicotine. These are both stimulants that can keep the body awake. While it may be a good thing in the morning, it can interfere with our ability to sleep at bedtime. Recommendations are to avoid the following at least 4 to 6 hours before bedtime: coffee, tea, chocolate, energy drinks, cigarettes, vaping, or any other tobacco products. If you need to cut back on caffeine, I should say, do so gradually to help prevent headaches. Some experts recommend no caffeine after 12 p.m., but that can vary from person to person. So you may wish to use trial and error to see what works best for you. Now there's a reminder that certain medications can also contain caffeine. Cold and allergy, cough and flu medications, as well as some herbal remedies. So make sure you always read the labels. It's advised to consult with your healthcare professional regarding how the medications you are now on may influence your sleep. And do not stop taking any prescribed medication before you talk to your healthcare professional. We also, as Dr. Chana mentioned, want to consider that issue of alcohol. Do you have trouble staying asleep after drinking alcoholic beverages? Well, alcohol can make you feel sleepy at first, but its effect wears off, disrupting sleep later in the night, as he mentioned. It may decrease your deep restorative sleep. In the 2020 to 2025 dietary guidelines for Americans, it's recommended that adults of legal drinking age can choose not to drink or to drink in moderation by limiting intakes to 2 drinks or at least in a day for men and only 1 or less a day for women on those days when alcohol is consumed. So those are some tips to keep in mind with regard to our intake of food and beverage. Now, another E that we had was exercise. You may know that have known that research has shown how physical activity may decrease your risk for health conditions such as high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and some cancers. But did you know that it can also help you burn off extra energy and promote solid sleep? Well, it does. Exercise can help you fall asleep faster and enjoy a deeper sleep. However, avoid vigorous exercise 4 hours before bed because it may decrease your body's ability to effectively wind down before sleep. According to the second edition of the Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, individuals should strive to move more and sit less. It's recommended that we get at least 150 minutes of moderate, intense aerobic physical activity each week, along with 2 to 3 days of strength building exercises and some balance and flexibility activities. So exercise, yes. When? Making sure you do it a little bit before going to sleep, not too soon right before. Now, Dr. Chaddow, we just mentioned this over the phone together here today, and I wanted to make sure, because we're coming up again to our daylight savings time change, that maybe we should address a little bit about what that does to our sleep habits. Could you go ahead and do that a little bit for us?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to speak a little bit about daylight saving time. So, what exactly is daylight saving? As it's been introduced several years back, the period of year between spring and fall, when clocks in most parts of the U.S. are set 1 hour ahead of the standard time. It's called daylight saving time, and its beginning and the end dates and times are set by the federal law. While the remaining period of fall and spring of the following year is called the standard time. So this 1 hour shift of sleep of the clock, although it might sound trivial, might seem trivial, it has a significant effect on immediate acute changes as well as some chronic changes. Right now, American Academy of Sleep Medicine, CHEST, American Thoracic Society, and several of health organizations are actually trying to pass a bill in our legislation, try to limit this daylight saving and remove this if possible. There are several immediate changes to daylight saving problems, like on the night when immediately daylight saving occurs, number of accidents have gone up. At least a 6% hike has been noted in the past few years. It causes severe sleep disruption and mood disturbances. Suicide rates have also gone up on the nights this shift happens. In fact, there's a study which shows that on the Monday afternoon, after the transition to the daylight saving, the stock markets have been volatile, and this has been blamed on the sleep deprivation of the frontal lobe changes, which can affect your decision making and your judgment. This is one of the few of the acute changes that can happen in immediate daylight saving time. And then there are some chronic issues. Some studies have been able to relate this daylight saving time to increased risk of obesity, metabolic syndrome, and cardiovascular diseases, including depression. So at this time, from a medical standpoint, we are not in favor of this daylight saving time. We do not think it's going to be helpful anyway, and in fact, it's going to be detrimental to your sleep health and your health in general. So we might, if our bill passes, this is going to be the last daylight saving time we're going to ever face.
So in the meantime, we need to make sure we take good care of ourselves, especially when those sleep, hours change, so that we get the adequate sleep we need. Yeah. So we're going to take another look, just kind of to review where we've been. We've talked here about 5 different areas of improving your sleep quality, making sure that everyday sleep schedule or bedtime routine is happening. We power down our electronics, we remove those devices even from the room. We look at proper sleep environment, such as the temperature, the light, the distractions. And we want to make sure we eat healthy with good nutrition, a limit of beverages and heavy meals close to bedtime, and recognize that exercise during the day is so helpful. Any questions from those of you that are online with regard to those tips that we have here to share? Any other tips that any of you may have experienced that you'd like to share? So now that you have identified with the tips that might help you, I'm hoping that you found something that maybe you are wanting to try that you haven't necessarily done as a habit in the past. We encourage you to set a goal to improve your sleep. When making goals, be specific on what you're doing. Make them so that you can measure them, and then be sure that they're indeed attainable, and try it for a set period of time, not so very far out that you get discouraged, but within maybe a couple weeks, 3 weeks, see how you're doing, so you can, before you abandon it, you check in periodically to make sure you're working toward it. We also, for example, would give you a goal such as this to think about. For the next 7 days, I will turn off my electronics 30 minutes before getting in bed, and during that time, I will do a relaxation exercise. Or another one that maybe I'm needing to actually employ is here for the next 2 weeks, I will keep track of my physical activity. I'm going to make sure to aim to walk 30 to 40 minutes each morning. And for others, it might be more about what they ingest. And here's one that might be a pertinent one. I will not drink caffeine afternoon for the next 7 days. If I'm tired mid-afternoon, I will go for a 15-minute walk instead. So for any of you that are online, I would really encourage you to take just a moment, think about what might be something we've talked about that you would like to employ, and write it down as a goal that you could measure, and then come back to and check and see how you're doing, let's say over a week's period of time or 2 weeks, so that you can see what progress you're making. Several of the things that we've talked about today can be found in more depth through the resources that you see on the screen. There are resources from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, the CDC, the Sleep Foundation, and the Institute of Health, as I mentioned that particular document earlier. I also have several little one-page documents that I'd be glad to send to any of you that are online. If you wouldn't mind sharing your email address, I'll be sure to send those to you in an attachment format. Just recognizing that routine is so important. Due to time, I really don't have time to go into this into great depth, but I highly encourage some of these relaxation exercises, one being deep breathing, another guided imagery, and another the progressive muscle relaxation, which I do have a handout on. And encourage you, though, to do these as forms of self-care, as part of your bedtime routine. Welcome. Now, Doctor, I know that with everything, there seems to be some sort of influence that COVID has had on it. So I hope that you would take just a moment to, how has COVID affected our sleep?
Yes, Ms. Armstrong, as you rightly said, unfortunately, COVID has affected everybody and affected several facets of our life, and sleep is no exception. A recent study showed that the term insomnia has been searched 50% more than other previous years before the pandemic came in. Insomnia has been a common problem, not just because of the isolation and the quarantines, but also the COVID itself. Patients with who suffered with COVID and were able to recover from it had prolonged periods of insomnia and fatigue. This is something we're still trying to understand and trying to address this, but it's a common symptom expressed by many individuals, especially women. COVID has also, paradoxically, some people complain of more sleeping, hypersomnia. They have been unexplained, sleeping more than 10 to 12 hours every day, despite getting good sleep during the night. So this is once again new to our field. We do not know if COVID affects the centers of the brain that causes sleepiness. We are still working on it, but if you experience any of these symptoms, then you're not alone. You should seek medical attention, and we are here to help you.
And Doctor, while you're still right here and we're talking about help, I would hope that you might just explain a little bit about the help that's available through the Sleep Center here in Columbus. I have some pamphlets for those that are in attendance to be able to share with them. I can also make a few available here at the library for people to pick up. I know I have one that's entitled Sleep Disorders Checklist. I also have a Sleep Diagnostic Center pamphlet that tells a little bit about what your offerings are there. And so I thought maybe you could elaborate on that just a little bit for people.
Yes, ma'am. So we have a sleep center at Columbus Regional Hospital. There are 3 physicians who are currently working there. One is me. The second one is Dr. Hagler, he's a neurologist. The third one is Dr. Gates. He's also a neurologist. All 3 are board certified in sleep medicine. We see a variety of patients with insomnia, hypersomnia, excessive sleepiness, sleep apnea, and other sleep-related conditions. Patients who have sleep apnea or sleep-related conditions, we do something called a sleep study, where we ask you to come sleep in a sleep lab. Although it is called a lab, it's more like a hotel room. You have a nice bed and attached bathroom. We just monitor several things, like how many times you breathe, how fast your heart beats, how your muscles move, how your legs move, how your eyes move. A lot of things are studied overnight in each 30 seconds. And next morning will be, they'll let you go home. Somebody will call you the results and diagnose you with any condition. So sleep is relatively newer field of medicine, I want to say. It became more popular in 1980s as we started understanding the importance of sleep and the importance of not getting good sleep. That's when we started learning more about it. I think as time passes, in future, a lot of things will be attributed to poor sleep, and we'll understand the importance of sleep as we move along.
Thank you. It's good to know that we have those resources here in our community. I would love to know if there are any other questions or comments about the topic that we have tonight with regard to sleep. I would say because Purdue Extension wants to always make programming available that meets the needs of the people that attend, we'd love to have your feedback. And so I'm going to go ahead to another slide to ask that if you would to put in the email address that I have here. I think it's going to be placed in the chat box so that you can complete that survey online. It is also such that if you have your phone and you wish to text the number of 833-444-7123 and enter the code 3370, you can then complete this short survey online as well through your smartphone. But we appreciate your participation. It's a voluntary survey, but it always gives us great feedback to know what you have thought about our presentation for today. Dr. Chatta, thank you so much for joining in and providing us some better insights to this whole subject of sleep. It's been very helpful. I appreciate that.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And for those of you online, if you have questions, I'm sure Dr. Chatta would not mind if you call Sleep Center if you need to know more information about their services. My office is also available, which is the Bartholomew County Extension Office, and we are welcoming any phone calls or emails. Thank you very much.
Thank you.